It's just, I'm not that type of person. That's why I was so...
She was only 14 when, according to her own account, her life was pulled into a world she never chose. A world of influence, secrecy, and people powerful enough to make problems disappear. And just weeks before her death, Virginia Giuffre reportedly recorded something chilling, a final message that was never meant to become public.
A lot of people involved. It took doctors, psychiatrists, gynecologists, dentists. All these people knew what was going on, hairstylists. I mean, the list goes on. I could keep going on and on and on. Drivers, chauffeurs, butlers, housemaids.
This wasn't just about one man. That's the part people still struggle to accept. If Virginia's claims are taken seriously, then this was bigger than a single predator, bigger than a single island, bigger than a single scandal. It was a network, a system, and according to the whispers surrounding that final voicemail, one name kept surfacing again and again. A name many believe was too protected, too connected, and too valuable to ever be touched.
But the best one for me is Ellen DeGeneres, who is, by the way, a very nasty person. I've had dealings with her in Australia. Could I tell you some stories about that cow? But anyway, good riddance to her. But, she was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
So why did Ellen leave the country right as Epstein-related files were becoming a major public conversation? Why did her closest longtime associate die under circumstances that sparked endless speculation online? And what exactly was in Virginia's final recording that so many people still talk about, but no one seems able to fully verify? For years, Mel Gibson has spoken about what he believes is a sickness inside Hollywood. Most people brushed it off. Some laughed. Some called it paranoia. But now, as old names resurface and old stories are re-examined, people are starting to ask a different question. What if some of those warnings were never really crazy at all? To understand why this story refuses to die, you have to go back to where it began. In the early 2000s, Virginia Giuffre emerged as one of the most widely known accusers linked to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Her allegations didn't just point at one abuser, they pointed toward a much darker world involving influence, privilege, and access at the highest levels. According to Virginia, Maxwell recruited her into Epstein's orbit when she was still a teenager. And from there, she says, she was pushed into situations involving extremely powerful men, including figures tied to royalty. She was just 14, and what made her story so hard to ignore was this. She didn't claim to remember fragments. She claimed to remember details, names, places, encounters, a pattern.
It took all of these people turning a blind eye, which they weren't blind to because we were right there blatantly in front of them. They knew exactly what was going on. Everyone's turned a blind eye in the place where I was supposed to be protected, in my country where I was supposed to be protected.
Virginia's account painted Epstein not as an isolated monster hiding in the shadows, but as the center of an operation built on protection, silence, and access. Safe houses, private planes, elite guests, powerful circles in multiple countries. In her telling, too many people saw too much for this to have remained invisible by accident.
The justice system failed us then. I believe they're going to do something amazing for us now. I really believe in them. I believe that the New York Southern District wants to do the right thing. And I will do everything that I can do to be a part of help.
For a time, Virginia appeared to believe justice might finally arrive. She was reportedly working on a memoir, a full account of what she had seen, who she had encountered, and how deep the network may have gone. Every trip, every party, every face she says she was forced to remember. But that book was never finished. Then things became darker. Before her death, Virginia publicly suggested she was under pressure. She warned that if anything happened to her, people should not simply accept the official explanation and move on. That message hit hard because it didn't read like drama. It read like fear, real fear. The kind that comes from believing dangerous people still have something to lose. And then came the incident that fueled even more questions. Virginia was involved in a serious accident. She survived it, but not long after, she was gone.
Right now, I'm Austin Westfall. Breaking news coming in, some sad news to share. We're learning this from the New York Post, several other outlets reporting this as well. Virginia Giuffre, the most prominent victim of the late convicted Jeffrey Epstein took her own life on Thursday.
This is where the story shifts from disturbing to deeply unsettling. Before Virginia died, she reportedly recorded a voicemail. Not a casual message, not something meant for the public. A message intended for someone she trusted, someone who, according to speculation, would know what to do with it if the worst happened. That voicemail has never been publicly authenticated in full, but online, its legend has only grown. People who discuss it claim it didn't just mention Epstein or Maxwell or Prince Andrew. They say it pointed toward recruiters, facilitators, and figures connected to the entertainment world. People who allegedly helped move vulnerable young women into spaces where fame, access, and abuse could overlap. If true, that changes everything, because that would mean Virginia was not only a survivor, she was a witness to how the machine worked. In her final chapter, according to these claims, she was no longer just speaking for herself. She was connecting stories, comparing patterns, gathering pieces from others who believed they had seen the same darkness from different angles. And then one particular detail began circulating online. A daytime television host, someone famous for kindness, someone whose public image was built on warmth, positivity, and trust. Someone millions of viewers invited into their homes for years. Now ask yourself this: which talk show host suddenly relocated overseas as scrutiny around Epstein-linked narratives intensified? Which celebrity figure changed image, changed setting, and seemed to quietly step away from the center of American media life? Which star reportedly put distance between herself and Hollywood right as public curiosity began turning in uncomfortable directions? That timing is one reason speculation exploded. But Ellen's departure wasn't the only thing people found strange. Then attention shifted to Stephen "Twitch" Boss. For years, Twitch was seen as one of the brightest, most likable figures on Ellen's show. He was energetic, loyal, warm, and constant, the kind of person viewers associated with joy. But behind the scenes, nobody really knows what burdens he may have carried privately. Then came the tragedy. In December 2022, Twitch died by suicide.
Many other girls, and a lot of things have happened.
The official explanation focused on personal struggles and mental health, and that is the explanation that must be treated seriously. But online, that didn't stop people from asking harder questions, because almost immediately, new rumors began spreading. Claims that Twitch may have left behind a note, and that the contents of that note were more complicated than the public was told. Those claims remain unverified, but they spread fast. Some said the note referenced things he had witnessed during his years close to Ellen's production world. Others claimed it hinted at pressure, silence, and private knowledge involving powerful people. Then came another rumor that there may even have been a private voice message connected to Ellen herself. No confirmed release, no full proof, just fragments, speculation, screenshots, message boards, and the kind of digital smoke that keeps a story alive long after headlines move on. But here's why people won't let it go. Virginia was said to be gathering testimony and connecting dots tied to powerful figures and the entertainment world. Then she dies, leaving behind a rumored voicemail. Later, one of Ellen's closest longtime collaborators dies, and speculation erupts over whether he too left something behind. And soon after, Ellen is no longer in the US. Coincidence? Maybe, but the sequence is exactly why the internet refuses to move on. And that's the point where Mel Gibson gets pulled into the conversation. For years, Gibson has made comments suggesting that Hollywood protects darkness behind glamour. He has talked about corruption, exploitation, hidden power structures, and a culture where truth gets buried if the wrong names are involved. Critics dismissed him. Supporters said he was saying out loud what others were afraid to say. Now, with Epstein's case still haunting the public imagination, some online commentators have started framing Gibson as someone who saw the pattern long before most people were willing to. According to circulating claims, Gibson has privately described Hollywood as a network of mutual protection, a world where elites shield each other until exposure becomes impossible to contain. Some accounts even claim he believed Ellen's departure had less to do with politics and more to do with panic over what future disclosures could bring. Whether those quotes are fully reliable or not, the effect has been the same. They've poured gasoline on an already burning story. Then people revisited old clips, One moment in particular drew renewed attention, a segment from Ellen's show that some viewers now interpret very differently than they did at the time. A cosmetic joke, a strange line, laughter in the studio. To most people, it played as awkward celebrity humor. But to those already suspicious of Hollywood's darker undercurrents, it felt eerie. Out of touch, too close to themes that no longer sounded funny once placed beside the broader allegations surrounding exploitation, youth, and power. And that's where this story becomes bigger than Ellen, because once people started looking back, they didn't stop. They began revisiting cases like Peter Nygaard, a once powerful fashion mogul later convicted in connection with sexual assault charges. They began looking again at elite obsessions with youth, genetic science, status, control, and access. They began rereading reports, filings, and old interviews through a different lens. Suddenly, jokes didn't feel like jokes anymore. Comments that once sounded bizarre started sounding ominous. And with Epstein, one detail keeps resurfacing: his interest in science, genetics, and elite institutions. Reports connected him to research funding, genome sequencing, and relationships with academics and medical circles. On paper, some of that may look like intellectual vanity, but when placed beside everything else people believe he was involved in, it becomes yet another piece that fuels darker interpretations. Then there are the emails, thousands of messages, fragments, references, language that people still debate to this day. Supporters of various theories say those messages contain coded language, terms and metaphors that appear strange, suggestive, or impossible to interpret innocently once viewed in context. Critics say people are reading too much into ambiguous text. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is certain: Epstein's communications only intensified the belief that far more was happening behind closed doors than the public has ever been fully told. And when powerful people are questioned about these topics, the response often follows the same pattern: dismiss it, mock it, call it baseless. Shame anyone who asks. Move on. That strategy works until survivors start speaking, because speculation is one thing, testimony is another. Marina Lacasey, once identified in court documents only as minor victim number 1, later spoke publicly about her alleged experiences with Epstein. Like Virginia, she described being drawn into a system that exploited youth, vulnerability, and power imbalance. Her words reinforced the same horrifying pattern that other accusers had already described. The abuse wasn't random, it was structured.
More tonight about the tragic suicide of Stephen Twitch boss and the detailed steps he took to hide his plans. TMZ is reporting when Twitch left his home the day before his he took an Uber to a motel about a mile away. At the motel, he switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach.
She says she was used until she was no longer considered useful.
Technology that Peter and I are investing in is called SCNT, which takes the egg of a young, perfect woman specimen, takes the egg and takes out the nucleus and puts our DNA in the nucleus. They just go in and take it out.
It's painful, right?
Huh?
Is it painful?
Yeah, a little bit. And this is part of this genetic greatness that we don't see in any other race on the planet. These curvy black women from Africa. You girls have a kind of a monopoly on this genetic perfection, and we want some of that. So, girls, for $100, we will pay you for your egg.
No, you gotta be out of your monkey.
You want-
You can get paid a lot more than that.
So how much do you want for it? Let's bid. I bid $500, but you know. I'm prepared to outbid him anyway. Whatever I bid, he's gonna outbid me.
I bought about $60,000 worth of eggs.
Yeah.
If you have abortion, that's very valuable. Umbilical cord, and placenta, even your period blood is so rich with stem cells.
And one of the most haunting parts of these testimonies is how often the same themes appear: repetition, isolation, fear, replacement, disposal. Another survivor described years of internal imprisonment after what she says was done to her by Epstein and his co-conspirators. She spoke of repeated abuse, of not being the only girl, of a constant stream of trafficking, a constant stream. That phrase matters, because it destroys the illusion that this was ever about one man acting alone. This points, again and again, to something organized, protected, funded, normalized in private by people who would never survive public exposure. And yet, the official narratives never seem to satisfy the scale of what victims say they lived through. Even Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted for her role in Epstein's crimes, has made remarks that keep public suspicion alive regarding Epstein's death. And when even central figures in the case appear to undermine the cleanest official explanations, people naturally ask, who is actually telling the truth? So let's lay out the pattern the way millions online now see it. Virginia speaks out. She names names, she works on a book, she reportedly records a voicemail, she warns the public, she suffers a serious accident, then she dies. Twitch spends years beside one of the most powerful women in television. He dies. Rumors spread that he left behind private words the public never got to see. Then Ellen leaves the country. Her image changes, her environment changes, her distance from the center of the conversation grows, and the public is told it's all unrelated.
So what I make of it is basically he's saying that they'll hook up with ugly girls, that the head doesn't matter so much, that the body's what matter. That's the way I read it.
The official explanation is simple. Politics, lifestyle changes, personal decisions. But for many people watching from the outside, the timing tells a more troubling story. Because right as more Epstein-related material kept drawing attention, Ellen stepped away from the very world that made her untouchable. And once that happened, viewers began re-examining everything, even the visuals around her show.
You described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory, alleging you and others ran a trafficking ring from a Washington pizzeria basement. Have you reviewed any 2025-2026 Epstein files that were released that you believe reference or relate to those specific 2016 claims regarding the Podesta emails, Comet Ping Pong Pizza used as code?
A detail that might sound absurd at first became another viral talking point. The resemblance some fans noticed between parts of Ellen's set design and imagery associated online with Epstein's island. Similar patterns, similar visual echoes. Maybe coincidence, maybe internet overreach, or maybe just one more example of why, once trust breaks, people begin seeing clues everywhere. And that may be the most important part of this entire story. Because whether every rumor is true or not, the trust is gone. Here's what we do know. Jeffrey Epstein operated a trafficking network that reached into elite circles. That is not speculation. That is established by criminal.
I think with Jeffrey Epstein, it starts somewhere, but then it ends with either you having sex with him, whether you like it or not. He has somebody new in his life. He likes to see them a lot. So I went there a whole bunch of times, and, it led to, unfortunately,
cases, he forced testimony, and court proceedings. Virginia Giuffre became one of the most recognized voices demanding accountability. She spent years trying to force the world to look directly at what powerful people would rather keep buried. Then she died. And because she died after publicly expressing fear, every unanswered question around her became even louder. At the same time, Ellen
you know where that is too, right?
DeGeneres, once one of the most protected personalities in American entertainment, saw her public image collapse, her empire shrink, and her personal choices become a magnet for scrutiny. Fairly or unfairly, her name is now linked in online discourse to one of the darkest webs of suspicion in modern celebrity culture. Twitch's death added another layer of tragedy, another layer of mystery, another layer of public doubt.
As it came to a point when I was, I'd say 16 and a half or 17, he didn't want me anymore. He was just like, you're too old.
He said that?
He's like, you're too old. I don't want you.
The Epstein materials that have emerged over the years have revealed pieces, but never enough to make the public feel the whole truth has been exposed. Too much is redacted, too much is disputed, too much remains buried beneath power, reputation, and institutional caution. And that is why this story still has a grip on people, because the pattern feels familiar. Speak too loudly and something happens. Ask too many questions and you get mocked. Connect too many dots and you're told you've gone too far. But history has a strange habit. The things people are mocked for questioning today often become the very things everyone admits they should have questioned sooner. Maybe Virginia's final voicemail is exactly what some claim it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the rumors around Twitch.
Entertainment publication The Wrap has the exclusive story and said Ellen DeGeneres and wife Portia de Rossi have moved to rural England, put their Montecito estate on the market, and plan to never return to the United States.
The public was never meant to see. Maybe they don't. But what is undeniable is this. Too many lives were shattered around Epstein's world for people to accept easy answers anymore. And that is why the public keeps circling back. Because if even half of what survivors alleged points toward a larger protected system, then this story was never about one disgraced financier. It was about an entire culture of access without consequences. A culture where image protected power, where fame softened suspicion, where money bought silence, and where truth for a very long time had no chance. So now I want to hear from you. Are people reading too much into a chain of tragic events? Or are these fragments pointing towards something much deeper? Something the public still hasn't been allowed to fully see? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more breakdowns like this, direct, sharp, and willing to ask the questions mainstream coverage usually avoids, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this story may be quieter than it was before, but it is far from over.